Rehab for Everyone is an online personal development and life coaching resource. I, Danielle D'Onofrio, am not a therapist or doctor, although I may interview some from time to time. I am an everyday person sharing personal experiences and the practices that have worked for me. My content, products, and services do not replace medical or mental health support from licensed professionals. Thank you and enjoy the episode. Okay, hello everybody. My name is Danielle D'Onofrio. This is Rehab for Everyone, and this particular series is called What Healing Looks Like. It's actually our first episode in the series, and my goal is to really start to dig into exactly what it's called, what healing looks like on a day-to-day basis. So we read a lot about the things we're supposed to do and the way we're supposed to think and the habits and mindsets that we're supposed to get out of in order to grow and develop personally. But what do those things actually look like in your day-to-day life when issues arise or conflicts show up or we're going through a tough time? What does that growth actually manifest as in our interactions with people and our behaviors and the way we think and feel about ourselves. So that's really what I want to dig into in this series. And I'm going to do it by sharing everyday experiences from my life. And hopefully we'll be able to get some people on here and do some interviews and have others share about what healing looks like in their life too. So I'm really happy to have you here. I'm really excited to get this podcast going. So thank you so much for joining. If the content is entertaining, interesting, helpful in any way, I would love for you guys to subscribe, hit the like button, and support the channel so we can help as many people as possible. Again, my name is Danielle D'Onofrio, and we're going to jump right in. Okay, so the topic I want to talk to you guys today about is boundaries. I'm sure if you guys have done any sort of your own healing work or worked with any coaches or therapists or read books or anything, you've read tons about boundaries, right? There's sort of these little rules that we put in place to help ourselves feel safe and comfortable and happy in our interactions with other people. And also in our interactions and relationship with our environment, right? Because essentially we have a relationship with everything around us. It's how we sort of coexist with people, places, things. And I had a really interesting experience over the last couple of months with boundaries. I have definitely been doing a lot of boundary work over the past decade in my own healing journey. But all of a sudden, this situation came up over the last couple of months that really put boundaries front and center for me very unexpectedly. And it's almost as if the universe plopped this experience right in my lap in order to show me exactly how important boundaries are, because I've known and I've been studying and implementing boundaries in my life for a long time. But you know, it's hard. Sometimes it's hard to maintain boundaries, or we feel guilty about boundaries, or we're not really sure exactly the impact they're having in our lives. But all of a sudden, the situation came up, and wow, it gave me so much clarity. Now, the situation that showed up is that I started a club. Now, the club is totally unrelated to Rehab for Everybody. I'll give you a little background. So, we homeschool our kids, and we've been doing it for about 2 years. And sort of the social aspect for the kids when you're homeschooling comes a lot through, the parents doing networking with other parents in the community and sort of meeting people who are like-minded, who you get along with, and, introducing your kids and making sure they have regular interactions. And a lot of the way that this is implemented is through groups and clubs and co-ops. And in our area of the state that we live in, there weren't a lot of those things. And so I tend to be I don't even know what you'd call me, but like I'm sort of the type of person who would start her own club instead of joining someone else's club. I tend to be more of a leader than a follower. Not that there's anything wrong with joining someone else's club, but if I look at my history, that's sort of my style. I kind of know how I want to have things. I know sort of I have a vision for them, and so I will then implement. And so I started this club for homeschooling families in my area. And it attracted a lot of people right off the bat because, like I said, there was a need in our area. And as soon as we sort of started meeting regularly and I was exposed to these people in person on a regular basis, weekly. And in the beginning, everybody's pretty much on their best behavior because everyone's meeting new people for the first time. And then people want to make friends, they want to make a good impression. And then as our sort of meetups, our weekly meetups went on, I started to notice, the unique personalities arising from the different members of the group. Also what's the right way to put it? Sort of the different needs and desires that were showing up. So everyone joins a club. Essentially, there's a purpose for the club. That's sort of what a club is, right? It's something that it gathers people together who are like-minded, who are have something in some specific thing in common, and you meet or you communicate, and there's generally sort of guidelines and rules that the club members follow. So what I started to notice after we had been together for several weeks in a row is that people were looking for different things. And some of them were looking for things that I didn't necessarily have as a vision for the club, right? And I started to feel they would be very vocal about those opinions and about what they wanted to happen for the club, the way they wanted us to meet, the way they wanted us to communicate, how new members were allowed into the club and all of these things. And I didn't really have, so here's the thing, is going into the club, I honestly haven't started a club ever. Maybe since elementary school. And it sounds, it's funny because we talk about like starting a club. I feel like it is kind of like this elementary thing, but people do it all the time to create a safe and fun and entertaining space for people with mutual interests, right? But when I started it, all I had in my head was like, I need to put more effort into building community and facilitating the social aspect of homeschooling for my kids. And I want them to meet other kids their age, put up a Facebook group. Boom, we're done. And I didn't think about the need for boundaries because I just sort of had in my head, and I think this is what we do in our lives as well. I just sort of had in my head that everything was going to go peachy, that it was just going to be easy and smooth. And what could go wrong? We're just a bunch of, moms meeting at the park to get our kids together, right? And again, the reason I'm talking about this, and I mentioned that the topic we're going to be discussing is boundaries, is that I think that, the whole idea of an exclusive club, and it doesn't even have to be totally exclusive, but the whole essence of a club is essentially there's some exclusivity to it, right? It's a really great metaphor for our lives and sort of creating sort of this exclusive nature to our sphere of influence in our lives in order to create an environment and a community that nurtures us and feels safe and enjoyable for us to, grow in throughout our lives. So, I really think the whole idea of a club is what I've learned is that the whole idea of a club is a really great metaphor for one's life. And that's why I'm sort of getting into the nitty gritty of my experience in starting this club here. And then we're going to tie it back to how we can apply those principles to our own lives in terms of boundaries. Right. So anyway, I didn't expect to have to set boundaries. I expected everything to be peachy and smooth and just easy. And for the most part it was, but we had some personalities arising where I had to, all of a sudden, here's the thing, and I think this is a really important point, is that all of a sudden in the group, I started to feel threatened as sort of the leader and creator of this club who had a vision for how we were going to build the community, encourage regular attendance so that the kids, have regular exposure to each other. And I really had a vision. And all of a sudden, everyone wanted to implement their vision, essentially. That's essentially what happened. Everyone had an opinion. Everyone wanted to implement their vision. But they weren't the ones that started the club, right? And I guess it's the same thing with our own lives. This is your life, right? And you have to decide what you want it to look like. But anyway, everyone sort of wanted to implement their own. And I started to feel threatened and frustrated and a little bit stressed out and anxious. And I started to realize that I needed to, and I didn't even label it as boundaries. When this stuff first started showing up, I started to say, okay, well, there needs to be some rules here. People need to know sort of what the vision is for the group, what the mission is, and what we will and will not tolerate. And I don't, if everything had been peachy and easy, like I said, I expected, I probably wouldn't have, the need to create rules would have never showed up for me. Right. And so, but the need showed up. And so I decided to write some rules, and essentially I was writing the rules to, what's the word? I was writing the rules and basically in order to put some people in their place. And that kind of sounds a little bit harsh, but essentially that's what it was. So, you're starting a club, and you have a couple of people coming in and saying, they want the club to run their way, right? I sort of had to write these rules and these guidelines to say, like I said, this is the vision, this is the mission, this is what I set out to do. And, essentially as the sort of the founder or the creator of the group, I'm the one who's put the effort and the work into creating it and networking and building the membership and organizing the meetups and all that stuff. So, and I mean, there really shouldn't be any rationale for it. There shouldn't have to be rationale for me creating rules and boundaries for a club that I started, right? And you guys, I'm sure you can relate to this. Immediately, I start to go through that thing that I just started to say out loud here on the podcast, which is like, wait, I started this club. I started it with a certain vision. I'm the one who started the group and, opened the group and networked and did all these things. Like, why should I have to listen to all of these other people telling me what they want the club to be, right? And then the other thoughts that start to show up in my head are, well, God, I don't want to be that person who makes it like the club super exclusive, or I don't want to hurt anyone's feelings, or I don't want any kids to be left out, or, I want to be able to make this something for everybody. And I think it was when I started to have those kind of thoughts, like what I just said, which is, I really want this to appeal to everybody. Not that I want it to appeal to everybody, but I want it to suit everybody. That was the red flag for me. And it's because of all of my previous work and getting to this point in my journey that I recognize that you can never make everybody happy. You cannot create anything of value that's going to be for everybody. And that goes for your life too. You are not going to be for everybody. If you try to be for everybody, you're just going to end up being a watered down version of yourself. Of your actual self, or maybe not even recognizable compared to your actual unique self, right? And that's the same thing that goes for a club. If I had created this club and then allowed it to become everything that everybody else wanted it to be, it wouldn't have any value for the people that I was originally trying to serve. And I think that's just such another strong metaphor. When we think about shaping our lives and creating boundaries that actually sort of start to make our lives look like some sort of, like an exclusive club. Like, you are that important. Your safety and happiness and well-being and comfort and, your the opportunity to feel nurtured and free to grow. Like, that stuff is of utmost importance. And it's worthy of exclusivity, and laying down guardrails, essentially boundaries, that are going to describe and explicitly describe what you will and will not tolerate in your life, right? What is your vision? What are the things that need to happen? And I can be talking about my life, your life, or some sort of special interest club, right? What is the mission and what needs to happen in order for that mission to actually be carried out and to be successful? And it's definitely not tending to every opinion or idea that's thrown at you by other people. It is by staying true to what you believe you need, or what I believe the club needed. And so so we're going to get to the next part of the story here, which is that I then wrote out the rules, posted them in the group, and I immediately had a few people write to me with sort of some passive aggressive, trying to sort of pass off friendly words, but or rather I should say, trying to sort of pass off judgment as with friendly words, but it was very clearly passive aggressive and sort of attacking my character because I had said, this is what we're doing here. If you're into it, we're so happy to have you. If you're not into it, if sort of what we're creating here doesn't meet your needs, then, that it may not be this group, this club may not be the right fit for you. And I had a couple of people, like I said, who were a little bit mean. I had a couple of people just sort of walk away. And then I had a bunch of people who said, "Oh my God, I'm so glad that you wrote those rules. That's like exactly what we're looking for. I think it's really going to sort of cultivate the type of membership that will help support the mission. And, we really believe in this mission." And so essentially what it did, creating the rules, it helped us to sort of shed the people who were not going to be supportive of our mission. And now if I hadn't set those rules, those people would still stay and play. They would still be creating noise that distracted from the mission of the club. And again, we can take this as a direct metaphor back to our lives, is that if we don't create rules and boundaries for our lives and for ourselves, we continue to have this toxic, destructive, and even if it's just distracting noise that takes away from or distracts or pulls our attention away from who we are trying to become, what we're trying to do in our lives, what we're trying to feel in our lives. So when you don't create those rules, you don't give yourself and you don't give people an opportunity to react to the rules. That reaction gives you really valuable information about whether or not they're going to be healthy, remaining in your sphere of influence, or if they're going to be a problem remaining in your sphere of influence. And again, this doesn't make those people bad, right? It just means that they're not the right fit. And not everyone's going to be the right fit for everybody. You can't expect that. I know I grew up thinking that if there was one person who didn't like me or didn't want to be my friend, right, there's something wrong with me. There's nothing wrong with either of us. It just means that we're not vibing. We don't vibe. We're not on maybe the same vibration. We don't look at life the same way. We have different hopes and dreams. It's okay to let people go. And in fact, you really want that to happen. You want to be so clear, and you can do it eloquently. You can do it with love and respect and compassion, but you really do want to be super clear on what you will and will not tolerate in your life, what you will and will not allow in your sphere of influence. What it is you want, what you don't want. You have to be super clear about those things. Otherwise, you're going to constantly be distracted by that which does not support your mission and goals for your life. So yeah, I think it was really an interesting thing. Oh, so there was another piece of this story, which is that back in 2019, I had joined another club, another homeschool club for my youngest son. And, we had gone to a couple of meetups and it was okay. And over time, that club just sort of, it didn't really feel like the right fit for us. I don't have to get into the details why, but the vibe wasn't right for us. And we ended up leaving that group. And I had just sort of heard through the chit chat among the homeschooling community that that group really had a hard time keeping a group together. They really didn't get any attendance. And I suspect it was because of the vibe that I had originally picked up on. Wasn't entirely welcoming and fun. So I had left that group. And then, 2 years later, here I am starting in my own group. And it had turned out that the couple of members from that previous group that I had left, because they couldn't get the attendance for their group, they had sort of asked if they could join our club. And it's just so interesting. So I remember the leader of that old group, or the founder of that old group, had reached out to me and said, hey, told me the situation. They really want to join a group that is active and, keeps members. Would you mind if we join you guys, is what she said to me. And oh my God, I think I let her message sit for about a day because I was like, you know, kind of taken aback because usually when someone leaves your group, you kind of get the message, and I had kind of let her know that it wasn't the right fit. Um, and I don't even remember all of the exchanges that we had, but she asked if she could join us. I was very hesitant. I even ran it by my husband. He's like, telling me, don't do it. I don't want to give too many details, but aside from it not being the right fit, it was sort of something that definitely repelled me. Something I didn't want to be a part of. Let's just say that. And so my husband was reminding me of what I dealt with back then with that group and saying, just don't do it. And I wasn't going to, but then, they kind of gave me a little bit of a sad story about not wanting their kids to be left out. And I sort of said to myself, okay, I'm going to give them a chance. What could go wrong, right? Although my gut feeling was, no, please, we're not going to do that. I'm not letting these people in. If we didn't get along back then, or it didn't feel right back then, it's probably not going to feel right now. But I let them in, and within 2 or 3, and without letting me know, they brought their member, the original person brought her other members along with her to the meetup without letting me know. And I was like, okay, I'll be okay. I'll be patient and observant and see what happens, even though sort of my instinct was telling me this probably isn't going to go well. And the first couple of times, again, like I said, people are usually on their best behavior when you're first meeting, right? They want to make a good impression. They want to be accepted. But then very quickly, I guess people got comfortable quickly. Very quickly, they started essentially trying to influence how the group was run, which is just interesting to be part of a group, right? Or a part of a club that isn't working, and then come to another club because yours isn't working, but then try to influence this new club, right? It is kind of telling, right, in and of itself, right? But so those were the people who had come over from that club were probably the most. They gave me the biggest issue, let's just say, and I had to be very. In addition to just posting for everybody to read the rules, I had to reiterate them in private dialogue, and I was very respectful and just firm, right? Because sometimes we have to be firm in reiterating the rules and letting and reminding them, or being maybe more clear. Maybe I had to be more clear. I was more clear in sort of what my vision was and what we were trying to do, and basically not basically, but explicitly said to them, this is what we're doing here. You're welcome to continue on with us if it works for you. If not, if you're looking for something different, my feelings won't be hurt. And instead of just saying, oh, okay, maybe we're looking for something different, we wish you guys the best of luck with your club and moving on, they were a little bit attacking, and rude. And it really kind of stressed me out. And, it doesn't matter how far you are in your healing process. When anybody attacks your character or is rude or disrespectful, you're gonna feel it, right? And I'll tell you, I felt it because I don't think anyone's spoken to me that way. And God, since like, little cat fights in high school. And it definitely hit me. And that's when that was another moment where I realized how important, and effective of a metaphor this is to our everyday lives. Because if I hadn't laid down the groundwork, if I hadn't then reiterated to them what we were trying to do, what I wasn't going to do, and that they're welcome to stay, and they're welcome to leave if it's not a good fit. And if I hadn't done that, which is essentially setting boundaries, I would still be dealing with the headache that was their behavior essentially. So, and I was it hurts. It not what I want to say. It hurts, but it shook me a little bit to have people decide to walk away, because it's like in that moment, and again, this is like what healing looks like. What healing looks like is being able to set the boundaries and not feeling guilt around it. But then when someone decides to walk away because they don't like your boundaries, it's saying, wow, how does that feel? It definitely shook me. It almost felt like a kick to the stomach, right? Like, oh my God, like, did I offend somebody? Or, oh my God, they don't like me, or they think I'm a bad person, right? And I had to sit with those feelings for a couple of days. And then I said, whoa, wait, this is what happens in life. There are not everybody is going to like me. Not everyone is going to agree with me. I don't have to be for everybody. So what healing looked like for me in this experience was, like I just said, having the courage to set boundaries and not worry about who fell off, who walked away because of those boundaries, and to really rest assured that their reaction to my boundaries is not a reflection of me, it's a reflection of them, right? And to know that I'm cultivating something special, whether it's in the club or in my own life. I'm cultivating something special and safe because I'm having the courage to create the boundaries or create the rules for what I will and will not tolerate, for what I want my sphere of influence to look like. In summary, you want your life and your sphere of influence to be like an exclusive club where there are explicit rules or eloquently laid out boundaries, right? You can be respectful and compassionate and full of love as you are creating boundaries. It doesn't have to come off as stringent or weird, right? There are ways to do that. And, I cover that in my boundaries course at rehabforeveryone.com. But your life is like an exclusive club. It should be like an exclusive club. And people are very clear on what works for you and what doesn't. And the only way they can be clear is if you communicate those things, right? A lot of times we don't find or discover the need to communicate boundaries until one of our natural boundaries is being broken and we start to feel threatened or insulted or offended or whatever the word is. Once you start to feel that, you'll know that a boundary that you have that you maybe haven't even thought about is being crossed. And so sometimes it takes a little while to say, why do I feel threatened? Why do I feel uncomfortable in the situation? What's making me anxious? You may have to sit with it for a little bit. But I invite you to ask yourself, when that type of thing happens, I invite you to ask yourself, what type of boundary can I create right now that will help me feel more safe and secure and happy and comfortable and like you're in a place of expansion and growth and not in a place of feeling like you need to guard your spirit or your soul or your mental health, physical health, in any way, right? What boundary can you set? What is it that you're tolerating that you shouldn't tolerate? What is that thing that you're tolerating that's causing the problem? And how can you set a boundary to protect yourself and to safely and respectfully give somebody the opportunity to either respect your boundary and maintain the relationship or walk away? So I hope this was helpful. Again, this is my first podcast that I'm recording. I mean, I've done practices before, but this is the first one in this official series, What Healing Looks Like. And I hope you guys will stick around for the ride. Again, if this was helpful or interesting or entertaining in any way, I'd love for you to subscribe and hit the like button. And feel free, please leave me a comment below. Let me know what you think. Have you had any interesting experiences, whether it's even, successes or, situations that weren't so successful with attempting to set boundaries? Leave me a comment down below, or, head over to the website and you can find my email, or you can go over to social, at Rehab for Everyone, either on Instagram or Facebook. You can find me in a lot of different places. And let me know what you're thinking, what you're going through, what your experience with boundaries has been, or maybe where you need to set boundaries and you're not really sure where to start. I'd love to hear from you guys. That's one of my main reasons for launching Rehab for Everybody, is to connect with others who are on a similar journey. I think, the methodology and the support that I offer through Rehab for Everyone is applicable to any person looking for healing and growth. But I will tell you that I developed it specifically as an adult child. I think that adult children of alcoholics, dysfunctional family systems, that type of thing, because I developed it with sort of our commonalities in mind. I think it'll be especially helpful. But really, I think all of us bring into adulthood sort of certain belief systems that end up preventing us from growing and thriving in certain ways. And if you go over to the website, there is a blog post that I have up there, adult child expanded definition, where I talk about sort of what it means to be an adult child and why we need to expand the definition, because it's sort of explicitly connected to a people who have caregivers with certain conditions. But I think that it goes well beyond that very specific, I don't want to say diagnosis, because it's never a diagnosis. Well, not never, but it's rarely a diagnosis, but sort of goes beyond what can be described in that way. So would love for you to check out the website, reach out. And again, I just want to thank you for being here. This is really fun. I hope it's helpful, and I'll catch you next time. Thanks so much.